All right, here we are with another podcast, me and Silver 5150.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
And you guys know I am the Silver Joker, and this is a new channel that me and Silver 5150 is trying to get going, get organized, and we need you guys' help for that. Okay, so look, so we're going to tackle this issue today. I want to get right into that. There's this new technology that I've been reading about, and I think I've heard a couple of YouTube content providers talk about it briefly, but it's this new um, NFC chips that they're putting into silver bullion. You know what those are?
I what now? I think you're talking about the Mint ID chips. Is that correct?
That is correct. They're called near field communication chips. And the idea is that they're anti counterfeit technology. And I guess the idea behind it is they'll put this NFC chip inside of your silver, actually inside embedded into the bullion, and
Hmm.
uh, and it keeps it from being counterfeited because, of course, if it's counterfeited, it won't have the NFC communication that you can download and access through your smart device
Ah, so
via
like
your
an
phone. Right. So you
Android
just
or iPhone.
right. You just wave your phone over top of it, and it'll tell you if it has that chip in it, and if it doesn't have the correct chip with the correct information on it. I'm not a tech guy, so I don't really know
Serial
what all this stuff.
numbers.
All that stuff is going to come through that communications between the chip in the metal and the whatever device you're using, and that's going to make it almost foolproof, uncounterfeitable. Uh, and there's some obvious some obvious questions about that. So what do you
Right.
think about that?
Well, now, of course, it's going to be a blowback, and this goes back to one of my earlier broadcasts where I was talking about how silver is a very personal and private thing for people. It is sound money, it is quiet wealth, and so you're starting to get away from that. Now, we did talk about, before in the past about moving this idea of sound money, silver money for the people into the mainstream. But now you're talking in an area to where, the level of awareness for an individual piece is going to be, available to a handful of people at least, those that are going to be tracking the information or verifying the information, this sort of thing. I think it's a great thing security wise, especially, people might not think it's too important right now when, say, a silver bar is $300. But what happens when silver goes to, say, $170 an ounce?
Okay, so let me give you my take on it, and you tell
Sure.
me what you think. Um, so I'm thinking that it's a cost to put these chips in the silver, right?
Mhm.
So from what I understand, the cost is pretty low. I think it's like about 25 cents per chip. All right, that's the cost it takes to embed that in the silver. Okay, so why do you think they're thinking about doing that now, putting that expense out there now? And I think, for me, I think there is a absolute reason why it is being put in silver at the moment. And I think that reason is because the powers that be are anticipating the value of silver being such to where you would want it to be, you want that expense, that added expense, to make sure that it's not counterfeited. I mean, if silver value wasn't there, or the potential silver value wasn't there, I don't think they would have taken the time and technology to develop this. I mean, what do you think of that?
I think that you're right on point. The powers that be, and you got to understand, the powers that be is a pretty large group. The powers that be is your governments. They are your banks, your central banks, and in fact, in some cases, they're actually even some of the miners and the refiners themselves. So, to give an example, say Valcambi. Let's take Valcambi. And on yesterday's broadcast, I was displaying quite a bit of Valcambi offerings and stuff in the form of the 100 times one combi bars. What do you think the cost was for them to produce a strike for every single gram in that bar? And they've produced a lot of bars. They got to create dies for that stuff. And so, again, you ask yourself, what do they know that would make them go into such cost overruns to produce a piece that they're going to sell anywhere from 60 cents to $2 to do that? Well, it's because they do know, like the government knows, that the valuation on precious metals, in particular silver, has to go higher because it has a much higher worth and value anyway, but simply because it cannot be left behind in the inflation wave that they're creating. They know this. And so it's a twofold win for them in that if they can get people comfortable with the idea of accepting this anti-counterfeit chip, that people become more comfortable with the idea of the technology integrated into metal. The second thing is that it will actually alleviate a lot of hassles in terms of tracking and tracing, say, a stolen item, for example. Now, I think it would have been much better if the approach had been, well, in a commercial sense, we're going to do this, and we'll leave it as an option for the retail customer. So if the government wants to have its 1,000-ounce good delivery bars, with the Mint ID chip, and have that run as a test bed for a couple of years, that would have made a lot more sense than say, coming right out with and say, okay, these bars are being produced, and this is the way they are. If you want them, this is what comes with it. You don't have an option. This is the way of the future.
If they're going to be producing this type of technology for silver, because it's not just the chip, then you have to come up with the software to be able to read the chip. You have to make that software readily available for whoever is going to need it or want it. So that's not a small expense to produce and create and develop that. Okay, so why? My question is why now? Why just the generic silver?
Now, in that particular case, you make an excellent point. And the only thing I can point to is, in a business sense, it is basically this is a way for these smaller outfits to become competitive with the bigger outfits. And
Okay.
there's two ways to do that. If you want to become competitive with your competition, you would either arrange things or price things in a way that will beat them at the finish line. Or the other way you can do it is to get in front of a budding technology that will give you a security advantage or give you a product advantage over your bigger or better competition. So you're a small company. It's like, what do? You try to get to where you can position yourself to compete with the big boys or to become the top dog even. And that takes some risk. So the calculated risk in this case, if you're talking about the smaller companies investing in this kind of technology, which sounds like it's going to be a pretty heavy investment, they're taking a calculated risk that this is going to produce for them a big enough windfall, along with the increasing spot price of silver, to give them that advantage.
This is my thinking. I'm one of those guys that, I prepare for everything, but really assume nothing. I'm prepared for whatever happens, but I don't expect really anything to happen. I mean, me personally, I don't see where counterfeiting was that big of an issue. Now, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's some of the viewers out there, or listeners, who will differ with me and have some personal experiences where they can relate in the comments. But for me personally, I don't really have an issue with counterfeiting. I mean, I had a real bad experience with some pandas way back in the day. They were obvious fakes. I would definitely be able to recognize them today if I had seen them. But back in the day, I didn't recognize that they were fake until they were pointed out to me, and then it was obvious. So I don't see the counterfeiting of let's say these generic silver as being that big of an issue. Maybe there's an ulterior motive here. Maybe that, if you got a tracking device in your silver, that means it can be tracked. And I know that this is not, referred to as a tracking device, but basically that's what it is. If somebody steals your silver, you have a means to determine if it's yours or not. If it's, of course, it's going to be used to make sure things are not counterfeited, but it's also can be used to make sure that if your silver comes up missing, that you'll be able to identify your specific silver, right? I mean, am I wrong in
you're
that?
absolutely right.
Or what have you
But
heard?
let me tell you, Silver Joker, there is a wonderful, wonderful concept out there, and it's still alive today, believe it or not. It is called the free market. And the free market is basically a amalgam. It's an amalgam of a bunch of traders and buyers and people that are purchasing and items that are up for sale. The free market knows better than anyone or anything on what is going to survive and what's not going to survive. If the consumer decides and thinks, along the lines that you think, this will not go anywhere, The idea of chipping, because in all honesty, you think about it, we talk about silver. Silver is probably the strongest personification of private and quiet wealth. And this is completely counter to that. I don't know any serious stacker that has spent all his time, either trying to maintain anonymity or trying to, quietly, build a position that would see an advantage to that. Like you had said earlier, you haven't heard of that many cases, to where counterfeiting was that bad. And we can go down, the political brick road and, say things about China, being chronic counterfeiters and all this stuff. But even still, does it justify turning the very idea of quietly accumulating metal on its head? And if so, does it have the ability to survive in the free market? It will be evident in probably less than a year whether or not this sort of thing has any chance. I don't really think it does. I think when the majority of people that are buying, and even when you start to bring in the hedge funds and the retirement fund managers and the new people to stacking and with the big money and stuff that are coming in because they see the momentum, I think that's going to be an avenue that they will steer clear of the most. There will be some purchases done, but for the most part, I think it will die on the vine.
I absolutely agree. And the thing is, maybe this will change in the future with me personally, but I don't think I'm going to be looking for any type of bullion, silver bullion that has any kind of devices in it. I mean, I'm just kind of, I'm old school. I'm kind of device averse anyway. You know
You
what I mean?
are.
Well, we've had these conversations. And that's not to say, I mean, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm not about this, dark web and all. I'm not really into all that kind of stuff. I'm just from a practical point of view. I don't think I want anything but three nines fine or 90% silver in my silver. I don't want a chip embedded in my silver or anything. And I think there are a lot of because I think that they made a misstep here because they don't understand that the biggest consumers of silver is private individuals. So I think this company that has created this technology has made a small misstep. And for us, a lot of us are of the opinion that we're stacking our silver in case there's some issue with the government. Be it the dollar losing value or at the total extreme, government failure. You know what I mean? So we stack silver for contingencies in case we have to have certain barriers between us and the government, so to speak. And so to have the idea that our silver is going to be chipped where it can possibly be tracked, my silver is where I put my silver and only me and one or two other people know where it is. And I'd like to keep it that way. And I don't want to have a bunch of silver in my stack because even if one, let's say, 100-ounce bar is chipped and I add it to my stack, then my entire stack is trackable. You understand what I mean?
This is very true.
So
That would make your stack whack, by the way.
that would make your stack whack. So I mean, so I think I'm in agreement with you. I don't think it's going to catch on. Maybe on some fringe level, it'll catch on with people like I got chipped silver. But for the most part, I don't want to have anything to do with it. Like I said, maybe that'll change in the future, but I'm averse to that all the way. I just don't want to have anything to do with that.
Right. Well, it's one of those things to where you have to decide, what makes you feel right, what has the most impact, what fits your type of stacking. I don't see how this is going to fit a lot of types of stacking. What I do know is that now that this thing may come to the surface, first of all, I'm going to actively try to avoid those particular pieces. And this is just personal to
Mm-hmm.
me. I'm not to disparage the
Right.
company. And to, of course, stack those years that we know are not involved in this process. So your 1984 Eaglehearts, your older Eagles, anything
Right.
like that. So I think this is actually, now that I think about it, I think it's going to give a boost to
The
vintage
thing is,
silver.
is I don't understand. I mean, I want this to be clear. I don't understand enough about the technology to embrace it, so to speak. So I'm not just not embracing. Like I'm not neutral on this subject here. I'm absolutely the opposite end of the spectrum. I don't want this technology around me. And really what it is just I don't know what it is. I don't understand it enough to want to add it to what amounts to be my life savings. You know what I mean?
There really has no reason for it. There really isn't. Not for stackers like ourselves. We know what it is silver was originally intended to do, and as basically to preserve your wealth, to fight inflation, to allow you to transport what it is you have of value to the next paradigm. And there's really nothing in that language that says, okay, I want to upgrade to a Terminator style Skynet technology. Yeah. Well, you think about the things silver has done. I talked in my show yesterday about all the purchases I've made with silver, and in all cases, it was the same level of enthusiasm every time. The person that was in receipt of the silver for the item they were selling was happy to have pure silver, not 9.99 or 999
Right.
silver with a chip versus say 4 nines or something like that. They
Yeah.
just wanted the silver. They wanted, and so again, there's no historical groundswell for such a thing either. So I just don't think it's going to catch on at all.
Yeah. I'm in agreement with that. Okay, so I think we've kind of exhausted that subject a little bit, but I do want to finish with this though, because I don't I hate to leave things on a negative note. So um, can you think of any positives that could be with having your silver chipped, having your bullion chipped? I mean, to where you can authenticate it to make sure it's real. Beyond that, can you think of any other positive uh, things that go along with that?
Yeah, actually, I'm gonna kind of step off the reservation a little bit, and I'm gonna say that I think this idea of having a chip device within precious metals would be more helpful to the current iteration of the parcel service and the vendors themselves, the retailers themselves, because I think we can both share stories of delivery nightmares that has happened to some of our orders if we ordered offline.
Yeah, and I'm the same way. I mean, the only positive, the absolute only positive I can think of is maybe how today's technology, everybody wants the new techno thing, everybody wants the new technology, and maybe the younger generation that are not as technology averse as I am personally. Maybe this is something that they're saying, okay, so silver bullion stacking has actually stepped into the 21st century.
Uh,
Maybe that's kind of a novelty thing. Maybe it'll get more people interested in actually purchasing silver when they're not so much afraid of it being counterfeited, which I don't think is that big of an issue. Maybe that'll get more people to maybe step up and be interested in stacking it. But that really pales in the negatives, I think, that would come from having your silver
we
money.
are going to be moving into the future. There is going to have to be some premise for that at some point because, as we become mainstream, and guys, we will. Silver stacking, the stacking community, the idea of silver money, it will become mainstream, not because we want it to, but because it has to.
Mm,
The amount of irresponsibility that's taken place in government and in banking the last 100 years leaves us with absolutely one direction to go, and that is silver as money, sound money, and they can digitize it and put it on a blockchain or whatever they want to do with it. But it will have to be the money of the future, and as such, as you begin to do things, say off planet, or if you begin to do things internationally, is the idea of having chipped metal going to be that bad? I mean, everything else is probably going to be chipped by then at that point anyway.
mm.
And so it will definitely help, the more technologically minded feel comfortable and move into the future with it because we do want that. We do want, these future generations to feel comfortable with the idea of owning hard money as their asset of choice or as their currency of choice.
I agree. And just to let the listeners know, if you guys are interested, this article that I got a lot of this information from is from Coin Week, and it was actually published April 21st, 2020. So it's a few months old, still pretty new. So you can go in there, you can read all about it. They're actually putting it in a positive light. Coin Week is, which I would expect they would. And so you can read all about it, and you come up with your own decisions about what you think about it. I have a lot of silver that I've stacked that is absolutely 100% genuine, and I never had a problem with having to worry about it being chipped to check it to see. I mean, you got your regular standbys like your precious metal verifier and some of the other techniques that some of us old school guys still use. that I think are just, just good, if not better. So we'll leave it up to you to make your own decision. And please feel free to leave any comments in the comments. Let us know what you think, how you feel about that. And if you go to my bio page, you'll see that I have a PO box. I think Silver 5150, he has a PO box. So if you don't want to leave the comment on the particular video, you can always drop me a letter in my PO box or anything else you want to leave in there. But let's make this interactive. I mean, let's make this something that we can all digest and talk about. And I think this right here is a pretty big issue as far as I'm concerned.
Well,
Maybe a lot of people don't see it that way, but that seems like something that get some people's danders up.
Yeah, it's the single biggest thing that flies in the face of everything that stacking has been about up to this point. So I think, yeah, it takes the lead on that.
Yeah. And, there's going to be a lot of people that's going to be like, no, I'm not doing it because the government's going to find a way to track my silver. And some people are going to be like, look, that's nonsense. It's good and practical for, making sure your silver's legit and not counterfeit. So I'm sure there's going to be, strong opinion on either. Okay, so like I said, we're done with that issue there. So anyway, my motto, let's keep this silver train rolling. Let's just, we're going to ride this train to the end. We're going to ride this train until there's no more track left, and then we're going to get out and build some track and ride some more.
Silver tracks.
Silver tracks. I like that. Silver tracks. That's not the name.
That's not the name.
So don't
I
didn't win. Daggone it, I didn't win. Well, I didn't know I was playing. You know what? That's what we'll do. I mean, if you guys submit a name, we're going to put that name to the side, and then we're going to pick maybe 3 or 4 of the top of those entries, and then we'll have the YouTube community decide. How about that?
Now you're on to something. I like it.
Now we're on to something. Okay, so you guys keep it up. I mean, I'm going to say this, whether you agree or not, I'm going to say this. If you got to go outside, wear a mask. It is that important, and that's my own personal opinion. I mean, if you want to stay safe, I'd say wear a mask. You can't go wrong by wearing one. So, if you got to go outside, you got to be around other people, wear a mask. And that's all I'm going to say about that. So 5150, you can have the last word, my friend.
Yeah, be like Jabberwocky and wear that mask. You are helping other people, not just yourself.
Okay, thank you for stopping by. Keep stacking. Peace.